morning and welcome. I'm Trudy Brand. I'm the chair of the Customer Experience Oversight Committee today on Wednesday, the 26th of March, 2026. It's great to have everyone here as we begin the committee's work for the term ahead. I would like to acknowledge my Deputy Chair, Councillor Kahu Pakipoki, the committee members and members of the public. Nū mai, haere mai, and a warm welcome to you all. So you are all aware, this meeting has been live streamed, and before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the support in the room from our governance advisors. Andrew O'Rourke is taking minutes, and we are supported on technology by April Bryce. Thank you both. So now I'll begin with the opening karakia as we get grounded as we start. Tua ki runga, tua ki raro, tua ki roto, tua ki ruahu, tua te hira tangata, ka ronga te pau, te ranga te ao, humie huie, pai kie. We have no apologies to note, therefore we'll move on. We have no late items to declare, so we'll proceed with the agenda as published. Is there any interest to declare in today's agenda? No? Okay, if you notice if anything arises as we go through the meeting, please signal to me at the time. So as this is our first meeting of this committee for this term, today's agenda is initially light, and the report before us provides a high-level overview of the activity from July to December 2025, and it sets the baseline for how this committee will monitor and understand customer experience across council as the term progresses. Therefore, I'm now going to open us up and welcome staff, Strategic Advisor Martin Croft to briefly speak to the report on item 4.2. And we have Executive Director here, Bridget Jolly, who may wish to add anything from her perspective. Martin?
Kia ora, thank you through the chair. I think before I begin, I'd probably like to hand over to Executive Director, Ms. Jolly, to open the report.
Kia ora. Thank you, Martin. So we will take the report as read, but a couple of opening remarks. As you will see, what we have tried to do in the report is really ask our contributing business units to focus on customer experience. So, what did we learn about our customers? What did we deliver to our customers? And then also providing that forward-facing view of what are we doing in the upcoming period of time to improve our customer experience. This is, as the chair said, the first of these reports. We welcome feedback on whether or not this is delivering what you need as the Oversight Committee, and imagine that it will evolve over time as we receive your feedback on the report. One more comment is that as a committee, you will note that there aren't any recommendations currently in the report. You do have the ability to make recommendations to council. So please, as the conversation progresses, do keep that in mind. Martin?
To add to that, so the report has been put together with the support of the team. We have many of the team sitting behind us today in the room, and as questions are asked, I would expect those team members to come up and answer those. So we're open to questions.
Okay, who would like to kick us off with a question on today's report? You're looking at me, Mr. Mayor, so would you like to ask a question?
My first question is in relation to the changes that is occurring in customer services. On page 11 of the report, it notes the breakdown between those that engage with customer services through phone, through online, and through specific service requests. The question that might be best directed at yourself, Bridget, is how is that changing, and are people moving to doing more and more stuff online? And does that have any implications for the way we manage it? As Mayor, one of the areas of service that I'm most proud of is the positive feedback that I get from those that are dealing with the services in person and on phone. I think the tolerance they show sometimes when our ratepayers and residents is pretty extraordinary. But I'm interested in how that changes and what does that mean longer term for our organisation and delivering that sort of front-facing customer services.
I concur with you. One of the observations that I have, as well as our head of customer experience, is actually the extremely high quality service that people receive when they connect with our customer service centre. In answer to the question around where we see that going, we are looking to continue that very high level of service, but we are trying to collect data on the right channels with which our customers engage with us. So the degree to which we have the right information on our website, so people can get information off there, the degree to which we have information elsewhere so that people who ring the customer service centre are able to have their queries answered 90% through that customer service centre. So it's a really efficient way of engaging with council. That's our proposed end state, but we have some way to get there.
Do we have any data on the way that interaction is changing, that breakdown between how much in person, how much on phone, how much online, and how much coming through some of the apps that we use?
I don't believe we do, Martin.
No, I mean, we are beginning the journey. As mentioned in the report, we've had a new head of customer experience join the organisation, and that's primarily as a result of what we did when we were putting together the operating model. The operating model talks about how we engage on how we receive information from our customers, and there's quite a bit of work that's been happening in that area, the customer journey, and understanding that. So we do provide an opportunity for customers to give us their feedback through various means. So in terms of going forward, what we'd expect to provide to this meeting is a breakdown of how people are interacting with council, what that looks like, and so we're able to give you that information going forward. So don't have it at hand right now, and definitely something we're looking forward to presenting going forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Kahu.
Tēnā rā mihi mai ana ki a koutou I tēnei ata, mihi atu e rau rangatira mā. Where are we at the moment? So I was just for the benefit of, I guess, of the anyone watching and those people in the room who haven't had any level of intimacy in terms of where this is going. Just wanted to ask if the team could. You spoke of data, and I think that, and Mayor Nick was mentioning the collection of that data. I think the question is around the metrics on how we're going to be able to measure and compare, and how much confidence have we got in terms of the datum point of where we are starting, and the tools, how far down the road are we in developing those tools to be able to really get a gauge on as we are going forward?
We don't have a customer experience manager in the room to be able to answer that question, unfortunately, but what I can say is that there are many mechanisms for the community to engage with council, and through various avenues, including the library and customer service centre. So we have some information that we record about those interactions with the community and with the customers, some of which was being presented in the report. But in terms of a trend going forward, that's something that we hope to be able to provide for you going forward. So yeah, in terms of the mechanisms, there are numerous, and we are endeavouring to make sure that we've got that information available for you going forward.
A couple ki taere I te turu. So we had a discussion during last week, which I actually found quite comforting, really, and that was that that the process is going to be quite organic, and that it has layers which will be introduced into it for revision. And one of the, I think the things that we talked about which was really cool for me, was that, you know, things aren't going to be written in stone, or rather they're not going to be laminated, so to speak, right from the start, and we're going to try and force the proverbial square peg into a round hole. Have you got anything to add to that on really what how organic the process is going to be?
Again, through the chair, as you said, like we are in a very much a learning period. We've got a number of projects on the go and activities where we are learning. And what we would like to do going forward is make sure that we do that well. So we really do understand the journey for the customer. In many instances, you know, we have processes around, you know, how we interact with people. We want to make sure that we understand those processes and treat them not as processes but as people, you know, as a community. And so we are making sure that we are obtaining the right information to be able to answer the questions that they need to be answered, to make sure that we understand where in council it needs to go, and then how that is responded to, and making sure that we're following up with those customers. So, I mean, as I said before, we're doing a lot of work around the customer journey. And we're also working with the various parts of the organisation to make sure that we are, you know, are understanding and working with our customers and the community in the correct way.
Yeah. Has anyone else got Councillor Medi?
Thank you. Couple of questions. First one, just in around so librarian staff, customer service, enforcement officers. What I was just wondering about challenging customer behaviour and abuse, whether that's a standard thing or if there have been any trends, and also on top of that, being in some of those spaces or working with people myself, that you have a high turnover because it's a horrible thing to have to deal with, and I'm just wondering what kind of supports they get and whether there has been any trends. I mean, down would be great.
Yeah, I would like to invite our library manager, Kate, to come to the table, and she can speak to some of the training that we've been doing, working with our staff members to make sure that they are prepared, and she may be able to also talk to some of the trends that she's seen at the library space.
Thanks. Yeah, I obviously can't speak so much for customer services, but I think as a public service, we see the trends that are in the community reflected in our spaces. So if there are challenges in the community, this is what we see. We have a number of things in place that we are doing difficult customer training with staff currently. We've been running that for almost a year now, and it's been going really, really well. We're seeing feedback from staff saying they're feeling more confident dealing with this kind of situations. And I just want to highlight from the report the partnership that council's developed with the mailroom, which is really helping staff have another tool in their toolbox to refer customers who might be vulnerable. You know, it's not just straight to the police. Yeah.
Thanks. But quickly, so I'd imagine sometimes that, you know, things in the community, things are getting harder, but quite possibly behaviours aren't tracking or getting worse. Is there any feel from the library, are things getting worse there as far as challenging behaviours or, you know, presentation of you know, people that are going through stuff?
I think it can be somewhat seasonal. You know, kind of has its ups and downs. At the moment, we're feeling pretty good. We'll see what happens when we come into winter. But yeah, we're dealing with things. We've got good procedures, but you know, it can be challenging.
Yeah, thanks. And the other one, it's kind of a question whether it's been done and an idea. Just in and around Anteno and the way people interface with council and customer services, you know, you have these communities that don't, and even for some, you know, they may not have an email address, or Anteno may be beyond them, or they can't be bothered. I know that it's my job and not my job. But, the places, if some of our agencies out there that support these communities were trained in some of our systems, whether they'd be ideal for, someone presents at NICO or the White House or the mailroom or Pacifica Trust with an issue, and generally the staff will not go, yeah, that sucks. I'd prefer that if they had an issue that they felt should be raised, and a person that had the skills and the nous and the time and privilege would send an email to council or pop up. So a lot of these people won't. So I'm just wondering whether there's value in, agents, external agents like the Marae, White House, NICO, Pathways, whether their staff were able to get to a space where they were presented with a client with an issue and think, well, actually, this is council, and sat down with them and went through the antenna process, because I know at the moment that is not happening, and we're missing a massive amount of information. And not just that, most of the praise I get about things that are happening in the council are coming from this demographic as well, particularly in and around public transport and events. So that's information that we are not hearing. We quite often hear privileged people with time complaining. So yeah, I'm wondering about that customer, how we want to do things better, but I don't see much in addressing that gap.
I might invite Paul to the table if that's okay, if Paul's happy to come. So the question is regarding how we work with the community to make sure, particularly those that would need support, are able to communicate, connect with council. And Antenna has been mentioned as an option for that. And I think that that's a good idea. Antenna has the ability for anyone in the community to connect with council. That is a tool that we want people to use. Would you?
Yeah, just when I say community, my definition is different. Quite often when council says community, in my head, I'm thinking about all the people that don't belong to that subset, and I would like that to be increased.
Yeah, through the chair, I will actually invite the subject matter expert, Mr. Stiles, here, to have a chat. But totally agree in terms of there's definitely an opportunity for us to engage with those external groups to actually upskill, and I think that's a really great idea.
Can only reiterate, great idea. We do have really good relationships with those organisations, and I think that next step is using those organisations as a conduit for that really rich information coming from service users. We have used, we did a really good project a little while ago supporting former refugees and migrants around planning for emergencies, and we really pushed and the use of Antenna through that as well. So we've got a track record there. Great idea. We'll go away and have a good think about how we can do that better.
Yeah, Councillor Kahu.
Kia ora through the chair. This is actually a question for Maddie. I just want to pick out a little bit of are you suggesting representatives from the organisations are upskilled, not the whole organisation itself? Or is that then go back to, say, the marae, have a couple reps come do some training and then go back to the marae to be able to diffuse that information?
I think there's an opportunity here because quite often when you work for these places, they do PD, once every 2 weeks. They'll have half a day. You have someone from council coming in explaining the antenna. Because what happens is I go to these organisations and I'm having fun, having lunch, yakking. Someone makes a complaint and they go, well, you should do something. So I get out my phone and I do it with them. Now, why am I doing it? Why aren't you doing it? As kaimahi who's getting paid, because they don't know. And they may not even know the value. But, I explain to them, when you fill out an antenna, you get a reply. It's great. So I think once they've engaged in the process, they will see that it works. They might not like the answer, but I believe these values. So quite possibly it would be PD, and you can't make people do stuff. But I'd imagine if it was offered that, and I think it would be good value for money, rather than us having to do everything, having good partners with access to people that we do not hear from, having the skills and the tools to see a problem and say, okay, let's raise that.
Through the chair, yeah, what I would like to add to that is, like, one of the key components of the operating model is how we engage. And we've talked about customer journeys, and that they're important, but we also need to, as you say, reach all areas of the community, all people, in a way that works for those people. So Enteno is a great tool, and it's definitely one that we should explore in a number of areas across council, but we also need to make sure we're looking at all options in terms of how we provide a means of communicating with council. So that work is important for us.
That's just supplementary to that question through the chair, I guess. And again, Maddie, we're talking. Actually, this might be better for Martin. Is that do we currently have a regime of interaction that is regular, or is it sporadic and doesn't have anything that fits into something that would be regular that we really maintain?
Well, if we're talking about a specific group, then it depends on who that group is. Steve may be able to talk specifically around the groups that we're referring to now. But yeah, across council and across all of our areas, we have, if we're talking the wider community, we have people who are connected to the different parts of it.
Before the team answer, I'm kind of suggesting, is there a proposal there to up our game in what we're already doing? So that's probably a better.
Kia ora, and through the chair, that's already part of our work program. So what we do is we have part of our team's objectives is actually to provide information to hard to reach parts of the community, particularly around emergency preparation and what to do and how to get information should the worst happen. Now we use our existing networks and forum for that. Examples are community and whānau, and also our day-to-day interactions where we get that on the agenda. We share those tools. We talk specifically with some of the community leaders, and I'll now hand over to Steve to give some more details on that.
I'd only just add, as well as at a kind of sector level, we have individual networks, which for example, Disability Network, Vulnerable Housing Network. So we have sort of right from the top through, and then on a day-to-day basis, the named organisations would be dealing with many times a week, or for in quieter periods every other week or something. So we do have very, very close contact.
Cool, thank you. It's great to know that work is happening, and maybe that's something we could bring through the report in the future to keep us up to speed with how that work's progressing. Councillor Lisa, and then Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, hey there, and through the chair. So my questions are relating to the building consent. Oh, sorry, my computer just went. And quality management systems. So the building team are preparing to go live with a new building consent system, which is fantastic because the current one is reaching its end of operational life. And so ZT is a remote inspection tool that is going to be used. And I'm just wondering what type of inspections that this tool is going to be used for, and explain kind of how it works. And then, I would like to know if TDC and MDC has moved forward in syncing with our systems as well, and how far that's getting along, and kind of what type of savings during efficiency and timing that would be for council with the implementation of the new system.
Through the chair, thanks for those questions.
Yeah,
there's a few. Let me see if I've got them all in my head.
Yeah, I can ask them one by one if you like.
Okay. Look, so the first one about ZT, so that so this is remote inspection. This is where through a platform, ZT, the developer or the construction lead at the site, the builder, basically walks around with a camera and on the direction of the inspector at the other end, and so they can see things without the inspectors actually having to go to the site. Now, because Nelson is quite small, most of the time we don't need to do that. it's actually more efficient and effective for the inspector to be there in person. So, but there could be some areas where, say, after a flood, access is limited or dangerous, that kind of facility is used. TDC, NDC, looking at systems, yeah.
Yes.
So they are both on a different system to go get at the moment, so they don't have the same situation as us. So, but they are very interested in looking at how the new system, when it comes here, consent, it works, because they are both unhappy with their current providers. So they are very closely watching. I forget if there's anything else.
So it's just really what kind of savings that you're expecting. Would it be timing, efficiency with the new systems?
Yeah, through the chair, we are expecting administrative savings in time there, and that will enable us to pivot what the administrators do with their time. So they'll be able to assist in other sort of low-level processing, frees up other technical specialists to get on with the more complex work. Yeah.
And do you think that will improve consents, and at the time of consents, if there's any issue with that at the moment?
There isn't much of an issue with timeframes at the moment. We're pretty much high in that sort of 97, 98% on time with all the building processes. But I guess the efficiency will be probably for our customers. It will still, while we're on time, we can get quicker. So, yeah, improvements, as well as probably lowering in cost because of that.
Well, thank you, Mandy. That sounds really positive. So that's really great.
Cool.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you. Good, Mandy is still there. Morning, Mandy, and through you, Chair, and congratulations, Chair, on your appointment. Mandy, page 26 of the report, in the very fine print at the top, we see there 92 out of the 104 resource consents would not processed within time, and we've got a red flag there that it says not on track. Are you with me? Yep. Cool. I was just making sure before I ask the question. Councils often get stick for delaying resource consents, but can I just clarify, are they delays at our end, or are they simply a part of the entire process, and it may require the applicant who may have delayed that process as well to keep us off track? Is that solely within council, or is that within the applicant as well?
That 92 out of 104 resource consents were processed within time, right? Yep. So that's, what does that work out to be? About 88% on time. So yeah, things have improved, but that whole time frame, it does stop the clock if information is requested, and then when that information comes back in, the clock starts again. So usually it is sort of our end, but it is our end with a number of feeders. So we've got to rely on other experts that we don't have in-house. So sometimes the time they take in order to get their feedback or assessments to us can be the factor that trips it over the 20 working days.
All right, thank you. I mean, from my point of view, I don't think it's a negative thing at all. And I think that given that we're in the high 80s, I think the staff should be proud of the work that we're doing, because it has been lower there. So do pass on my congratulations to the team. I also have a question on the service requests that was right on page 11. Just bring it back up. Just there that we've got a, 1,500 service requests that are getting, on average per month, that are getting reported to council. Do we have any data on how those, like, how quickly we're responding to those, how many get put on hold, how many aren't actually service requests but more feedback, and is that somewhere that we look to kind of be able to provide some good data? It's all well and good to get all the service requests, but I think we owe as well to be able to present how many we've responded to or actioned. Are you able to comment on that, Martin?
It's a very good question. Thank you. Through the chair, I would like to invite Matt up to the table. Mr. Lorraine is our head of customer experience. And I know this is a hot topic and one that we are aiming to get a full understanding of and obviously improve going forward. So I will hand over to Matt.
Yeah, the short answer is to reiterate what Martin just said. It's something that we're looking at very closely at the moment. So to get those insights. Sorry, just to reiterate what Martin said, it's something I'm looking at very closely, diving into the different types of service requests, on average, how long they take to turn around. But what I'd add to that is timeliness is just one part of the customer experience. So what we're looking at very closely is how we measure the customer experience, how well customers are being responded to, that loop back, etc. So we're looking at the timeliness, but also what the customer experience is attached to each of those service requests.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Follow up.
Yeah, just 1 moment, please, Mayor. We have a speaking order. Thank you. So I'm actually going to ask my questions now, if that's okay. So I would just like to come to the financial sheet because it talks about unders and overs and we talk about timing and smoothing. Can you just explain that in a little bit more detail so that the public can also walk alongside us on this journey of understanding that?
Sorry, Chair, are you talking OPEX or CAPEX? So through the chair, in terms of where we stand at the moment, currently, as shown in the financial sheet, we're looking at a very small surplus of 66k. Some of the variances that are shown on there are projected, and those changes or the variances are in terms of some of them are due to the change of structure. So we've got in particular in personnel costs, there's a variance there. We've also got a variance in our, as we mentioned, as we were talking about just earlier, in our resource consent area, and that's quite a high one, and that's due to the extra cost in servicing some of that work. We use outside contractors to help us process some of that work, but on the flip side, we expect a return from that work as well. So there's quite a high variance in that space. The rest of it are really just small changes that mount up to what you see on the sheet. So we have no real concern in terms of our OPEX. We feel that we're in a good situation.
That's great. And then with the new systems that we were just talking about before, that was all budgeted for and stuff like that. So you're talking about the tracking. If I just pick up on what you were talking about there, is that as we progress through this financial year and move into our following fiscal year, the tracking should all even out and balance out and with the to's and fro's, so there's nothing alarming and we should tracking actually fine.
No, I mean, some of the variances are forecast. So again, go back to the resource consent area. Some of it's very hard to predict, but we are very comfortable with where we're at right now.
Great, thank you for that. And then on number 36, we've got the 40th year anniversary of the Heritage Park coming up, and we talked about new park offerings. Can you just expand on that for the community, please?
I'd like to invite Mr. Preston Thomas or Rebecca to the table.
Hello. So this year is the park's 40th anniversary, and we're currently doing a few things around that. So as part of Tuku Festival, we have an exhibition on called From the Ground Up that's exploring the people behind the park, the volunteers in the early section of time. We'll also be looking to do an event in spring that will be more of a big community focus event. In terms of offerings at the park, we open the book vault and there's been a number of heritage projects that have been ongoing, like the Bristol Freighter and some reflooring and various things that are happening there. That's pretty much.
Can I just add to that? What we're also seeing is a really big increase in the popularity of the park. So we're seeing massive numbers of locals coming to the park. That's in response to things like extended hours at the cafe. There's an amazing new bookshop that everybody's talking about, which is busy beyond belief and has had to open additional hours. There's the new skate park the pump track that used to be down beside the library is in at the park. It's bringing more and more families than ever before into the park, as well as some new displays and a really full event program as well. The Multicultural Festival was the most recent example. I think we had close to 12,000 people turn up at that, which is just staggering, absolutely staggering. So the park is just humming at the moment, and that's super cool.
We're also about to open a new exhibition, which is BICON, and that will be opening in April the 19th.
Great, thank you for that. It's good to know we've got some activity and things happening down there, and the popularity has increased. And my next question is on number 38 about the youth council there. Just a clarification, will we be inviting youth councillors to attend the committee meeting?
I think it's a very good idea.
As there's a huge component in here about the youth, and it'd be very good to hear it directly from the youth perspective. Is that something we could put on to future committee attendance?
The makeup of our governance structure and who comes where is really an issue for mayor and councillors' offices. It's something I'm happy to consider. One of the things I am conscious of is that our youth councillors have all got commitments at school, and so when is it appropriate? So happy to have the discussion, but ultimately it'll be a decision for governance rather than our staff. Great,
thank you. We'll park that then. So then I will come back to Sarah. Do you have a question, Councillor Sarah?
Kia ora, I do. Surprise, door knocking in Stoke. One of the things that came up a lot on the doors was people saying that there's nowhere to pay their rates or nowhere to pay their dog control. And so they were sort of saying that they'd really love something like a pop-up at the library or something where they could go in and have that face-to-face interaction. With the current fuel issue and everything, I'm quite nervous that some of our people there might be a little bit isolated. I rode my bike in yesterday. It was half an hour of hard yakka on a push bike. Buses are kind of pricey, you know, if they've got mobility and things. So wondered if there was any sort of thoughts in the group towards sort of maybe moving out of Civic House a little bit into the communities or any sort of pop-up like that.
Kia ora through to the chair. Again, if Paul would like to speak to this, then you're more than welcome to. But my understanding with the work that we're doing around the customer journey is that, you know, what is it that we can do to make it easier for people to access council, whether it's paying a bill, whether it's providing information or just learning about what's going on. So, yeah, the idea is a great idea. Exactly what we will do going forward hasn't yet been agreed, but yeah, understand why that concern is there and why that would be expressed. So thank you for the idea.
And through the chair, I'll just touch on that very quickly. We are working on our customer experience and community engagement strategy, and part of that will be looking at the service that we offer and the locations as well.
Okay, and Mr. Mayor, will you have a follow-up questions?
Yes, I want to talk, and these may be questions for you, Bridget. When I look, and this is about resource consenting, building consistency, and all those customer services, and I'm interested in your views, and I appreciate you're new to the role, as to, and I'm thinking about where we're going with our long-term plan and setting the targets. Are you satisfied that the way in which we're measuring the customer service experience with council is consistent across the different areas? And what I mean by that is we quite clearly measure our resource consenting and the timeframes. We measure the building consents, but with things like Intino and the other points of engagement with council, I'm a little bit of a view that you manage what you measure and that we're putting that scrutiny. And then the second thing, are we doing it consistently across the different aspects of people's engagement? And secondly, as to whether the targets are consistent. So for instance, if I look at Mandy's team and the work that they're doing in resource consenting, it is an incredible journey that over the last 3 years, we've seen a compliance level from about 60% to 70% to 88%. And I say to Mandy and the team, well done. But is the 100% target really doable? And why is it that we differentiate where 95% is okay with building consents, but 100% for resource consents? I don't mean any disreflection on councillors around the table, but if you ask me, was I 100% on time as mayor to every event I went to, I don't think I'd qualify. And I don't think every councillor around the table would score 100% either. Is the 100% for resource consents unrealistic? And should we set it at the same as building consents? I'd be pretty happy with 95, but I worry that we measure the building consents and the resource consents, but we don't measure the inquiry that has my tree been repaired or my footpath been repaired or a very wider group. And so my concern is, as we look to improve the organisation, have we got a consistency about how we measure and monitor the customer experience with council?
I will pass to Mandy in a minute to talk about how those measures get set and through which mechanism. But in answer to your question around how we measure and consistency, just building on the comment that Matt made before, for some, we need to recognise that in some areas what customers expect and how we measure it will be different. So, you know, in the circumstance of service requests, as Matt mentioned, timeliness is important. But actually, if the timeliness is, you know, I have responded and done nothing with that request, then actually that's not a positive customer experience.
Sure.
So I do think we need different measures for different sorts of customer experience. So quality of experience, timeliness, etc. And that's one of the things that Matt and team are looking at, is how do we collect the right data so we can start to measure that across all of our customer experience areas. You are correct. We do hold a real spotlight on some of those consenting areas, and I would like to have data that allows us to understand customer experience more broadly than that. So am I satisfied that it is consistent? No, I don't think that we do have the right data in place at the moment to understand customer experience, but I don't think that necessarily means that the measures themselves need to be the same.
And specifically, why do we have 100% on building and 95 on resource consents? Is there a logic to that?
Pass to Mandy for that one.
Thanks, through the chair. So both legislations, Building Act and Resource Management Act, have set timeframes, as you're probably aware. The difference is with the Building Act that gets accredited through IANZ and MB have come out with guidance that they expect substantial achievement with the timeframes, and they have measured that as 95%. So they have come out with guidance saying we expect achievement of the timeframes substantially. So that's why we follow that guidance and say anything above 95% is on target. Under the RMA, there is no such mechanism. It's just the timeframes as per the Act.
And my suggestion is that we consider as part of our next long-term plan. I just think at 100%, we're setting ourselves up to fail. I just can't believe we're perfect. And I don't mean that of anybody around the table. Perfection is not in existence. And whether as council policy, we should set it at 95. Consistent with the building consent. In many cases, resource consents are more complex than building.
Yeah, through the chair, that's absolutely correct. I mean, a blanket 20 working days for a range of complex activities is, I don't know who plucked that out of the air, and you'll find most councils around the country will struggle to get 100%. Yeah.
I still want you to continue to try and do better and get to 95.
Yep.
I just want, as we look forward and across the customer services, to set targets that are achievable. The other part I'm interested in is, it's my understanding in the building consent area that for the first time we now have a private sector providing building consent services. How can this committee monitor, and what data will we receive about the number of consents that are in Nelson but not being processed by our own staff, so we can get a sense of that competition? So I'm interested in understanding, am I correct? We now have private sector provider. How do we find out how many are being processed by the private sector, and the future reporting of that?
So through the chair, yes, there are, I think there's at least 3 private providers that have been given the authority to process.
How recently?
Well, one was a while ago, one was months ago, but there's been others that are coming on board.
But Keith, I'm just trying, is this a relatively new phenomena?
Yeah.
If I'm talking in terms of your reporting today on the activity for the first half of this financial year, i.e. July last year, is that the first 6-monthly period in which our building consent services have had competition from the private sector?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And do we have any idea in that 6-month period how many consents were issued by private sector building consenting authorities?
So through the chair, it's less than a handful at the moment, but they need to notify us, these private building companies, they need to notify us when they are processing consents. So there are milestones that they feed information to council. So we are aware of the numbers and we can report on that the next.
And the part I'm interested in is the public expect us, the council, to, through our LIM reports and those, to have all of the right information about a title going forward. What level of confidence do you have that the level of information transfer where building consents are issued by the private sector, and the transfer of that information on the LIMs for future, as to whether that change is effectively being administered? My worry is 10 years down the track, the quality of the records that people expect council to maintain, and ensuring that those systems are responding to the change with having private sector consent authorities.
So through the chair, we have those records, and we hold those records as the same as we would for our own processing of consents, but of course it has less information. It just has essentially notification that they've received an application and the final decision. So we will hold those records, and these will be made available for LIMs, but their quality is not something we can comment on.
Can I just dig into that a little bit more? If I look at my own property, I can find out the council issued a building consent in 1961, and here was what was done and the like, and the plans, and then the code compliance certificate. With it being done by the private sector, will all of that information, i.e. the specifics of what the plans were for the building consent, including the code compliance and when that was done, will that be transferred over from the private building consent agency over to council's files? Or is the property owner expected, is the private building consent provider expected to maintain that data? It's just quite a big change, and I'm quite interested to understand how it works, and that no gaps are left in the important documentation associated with people's land titles.
So through the chair, the private building companies are required to transfer information to council at those milestones. So we will hold that information.
And where I'm digging, is that occurring smoothly as the private sector starts to participate in the building consenting area?
So through the chair, that it is happening. However, it's not as smooth as we would like, because we are charging them for the storage of said information and they're not paying.
That's through the mayor. We could actually hold a briefing for that to get more information and delve a bit deeper into that, if that would help address the level of the information that you're seeking?
Yeah, no, I think I've got good answers, that there are some issues, and I'm just wanting to highlight it's an area of risk, and the fact that they're not paying suggests that there's a few squeaky wheels in the transition. The one piece I think would be helpful to the committee, and your deputy chair is going to be looking at the broader issue of building consenting between Nelson and Tasman, where we might go, is for this committee in the data that's reported to include what data we have on the extent to which the private sector, so how many consents are being issued by council and how many are being consented, and an invitation in future reports to highlight to the governance where there are any gaps that are opening up or difficulties around the private sector in building consenting.
Yeah, just through the chair, there is one more difficulty, and that is where planners need to, if a building consent is lodged with a private company, we give feedback as this could need a resource consent, and that private company isn't holding the building consent. It's not saying it can issue it, but it's not telling the owner to stop works until you get your planning side of things sorted out. So that is a bit of a misconnect at this point in time.
And can I just, the last little invitation, we've had a change in the law with respect to sort of cottages and buildings that can be added, and we're having a workshop so council can get started. Again, I'd be interested in the customer services report providing us data on that as well, just so that we can observe the change and see what's happening in that area of our building consenting services.
Sorry, just a clarification, that was specifically around the change in the type of consenting we're seeing in that area?
The government's given an exemption from building consents for
granny flats.
Sorry. Yeah, and I'm just interested to get a sense of the scale of it. My understanding is the licensed building practitioner is required to notify the council when they use those exemption provisions for establishing those separate units. And again, with the change, I'm just wanting to keep an eye at governance level of the systems around how that works. It triggers into the rates in the occupiable spaces, and just keen to get a sense of how many there are and whether the reform is progressing quite smoothly. In other words,
understood, in
the next 6 monthly report for the first half of this calendar year, getting a sense of the number of those that are coming through the system.
Okay, thank you. We'll get on to that on the agenda, and I'll go to Councillor Kahu.
Kia ora. I guess kind of staying in context, and I like the direction that Nick's questions are going, because it's demonstrating how monumental this task is really going to be. Because one of the items that we discussed in our first preliminary meeting was the different types of applicants' interactions that we're going to have, and really being able to tease that apart and make sure that we are able to identify those who are approaching and interacting with council as an individual versus those who, let's say, that they're a professional property developer. So that commercial sector, as a builder, as a business owner, as an individual homeowner, and those levels of interaction are going to need a different type of metric to be able to for us to gauge. And if we in our haste to be able to try and execute a broad look across our interactions, we may miss opportunities where we can apply a bespoke solution to address a particular sector of the I guess our community at large. But did you want to, and Martin, have you added anything to that since our discussion?
Through your chair, no, I've got nothing more to add to that.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point that me and Nick is bringing up, is that those type of interactions, especially when some of them are outside of our control, we would also need to be able to measure how efficient that side is it really working for the sector. And we'll probably find out through the users, through the customers. They'll tell us pretty quickly whether or not what their preference is, and we may be able to identify some things that are actually working really well in those and drag them kicking and screaming towards a better outcome. That's essentially it. But I just wanted to highlight for the other members around it was one of the points that I brought up, is so that we have that as front of mind, is to be able to, when we're looking at the numbers in general and the activities in general, that we are not conflating or confusing the numbers of those statistics with the overall success, and declaring success, that we're able to identify those, and that's hopefully we'll be able to tease those numbers out as we go forward.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you through the chair. More a statement because it's not quite in the report, but I found the piece that will pick up on it. But in the middle of page 26 on the report, there we see that we're on track in inspecting our high premises alcohol sites, and I just wonder if moving forward, this is an area that we could get some data on how we're progressing around licensing, in particular with this new committee around the customer experience as well. Councillors received an email a couple of weeks ago from a group offering their thoughts, but from I guess from a councillor perspective, if we could get some data on how that's progressing. I know in the past I was often approached by people, but now that I sit on the DLC, I'm not quite allowed to be as involved. But if we could get some data in these future reports around how that's progressing around, firstly, the customer experience, but making sure we're on track with how the licensing is progressing.
Through the chair, yeah, absolutely. We are reviewing services in light of that letter, as well as other responses that we've had to those services. So we're doing a full end-to-end review. We'll bring the information back to this committee.
Thank you. Councillor Lisa.
Yeah, through the chair. So I was really pleased to see a safety and wellbeing focus for our customer focus facing teams. And I'm just, there were some concerning incidents that have happened to our customer teams and what they've endured. And I'm just wondering how they're going with the good drills process. Has incidents reduced? Are they feeling safer in their workplace?
I would like to invite Kate back up, and maybe Matt also, if he wants to come up and talk to the customer services perspective. Kate touched on the work that they've been doing, and we should really mention our health and safety team within council, who have been very proactive in making sure that we have this training available for our staff. They put that work together, and it's being used. But I'll hand over to Kate. She can talk to the good drills work that she's been doing with the team.
Yeah, so it's been actually a really fantastic program, and yeah, like Martin says, thanks to our health and safety team for helping us out. And we've developed this program in conjunction with libraries in Marlborough and Tasman as well. And it's a train and trainer kind of approach. So we run regular and often drills to help staff practice how they might approach from just maybe a low-level difficult customer, maybe through to a serious security event. And just in our staff pulse survey, the library score on how staff feel about their training in this area and how confident they feel has really risen as a result of this program. So we're really happy with how it's going, and we're going to keep going with it. That's the idea. Would you?
I think Kate said it all, but it's I think what the training program does is it gives staff the permission to end calls when they are becoming overly aggressive or inappropriate, and that aspect of it is particularly well received by the staff.
Mm.
Oh, that's really good to hear. And so the outcomes so far are really positive. The staff are feeling a lot safer in their workplace. And do you think there need to be any more corrective actions on, implemented for any further, or do you think the processes are going well with this?
I think it's something that we've got to continuously monitor and be very clear and careful about. It's something that's very important to me, that all staff feel safe and they're psychologically safe as well at work is very important.
Totally agree. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do we have any more questions from Councillor Metty?
Thank you. I've got a couple. And maybe this is for the chair also. I'm just wondering about, so, I mean, it happens all the time. So the most important people in this conversation are our customer, and I think the front-facing people, the people talking to them, and most of the time they're a topic and not really part of the conversation. I'm just wondering whether there would be any opportunities, might not be allowed to, just the way things work, but for people around the table to be able to experience or interface with a human person that is involved in this. Subject matter expert is what I like to call them. The other question might be process. So we've got all these strategies and we're the Oversight Committee, so we've got all these ideas. I'm just wondering how reactive you're able to be. So, there'll be some great ideas coming out there, and whether you're allowed to just go and do the smart things, or whether they need to come here, or whether you have enough support or direction, or you're empowered by us, or whether you have to report to us everything you do. Just kind of wondering about the process and whether there's anything, how we are supporting, whether you need anything more from us, or whether there's something we're doing that's slowing you down.
So through the chair, in regard to making changes, councils we continuously improve. So we are always looking for opportunities to do things better, and I would expect our staff and our leaders within council to make changes where necessary. What we would like to do is obviously keep you informed of why those changes are happening and what's going on, so you're informed about everything that is happening in council in regard to the customer experience and the community interaction. We will, if it's a significant change, then yes, maybe this is the forum to bring it back to. And so you're aware of what our thinking is. And we include in the report some thoughts about ideas that we've got regarding change in the future. I mean, that's one of the sections within the report, and we've put that in deliberately to let you know about our thinking, and that thinking has come from the insights that we've gained during that period. So that's important. I'm not sure about the first part, your first question.
I'd just add to that I think our operating model is a really important steer for the entire organisation about the importance of customer experience. So in terms of getting the support we need from elected members in the organisation, it's a really important document for us, because it really does set out where we're heading and what we want to achieve. So both from an operational and strategic level, I feel like we are getting real clarity about what we need to be delivering.
Through the chair, if I may, Madam Chair, from the depths of the back of the room, I think as Chief Executive, I'm really excited that we're having this conversation today for the first time about the customer experience. The councils are here to serve the customer. I hear from talking to friends around the country and others that that one of the biggest gripes around all councils, whether it's in New Zealand or around the world, is the customer experience. We all know stories of being frustrated by that experience and interacting with a council, knowing who to talk to, making sure you getting reported back. You'll have heard a lot today, and some really good questions and talk around. We're going to put this in place. We're going to put we're at the start of our journey in this space. I've only just employed my executive director for customer experience, Bridget Jolly. She's only been here for less than 2 months. Matt Lorraine, my manager of customer experience, being here less than that. But the good news is we're putting a real spotlight on the customer experience. As Bridget has just alluded to, the future operating model, which is on the net and available for people to see, is all about the customer. Now, it doesn't say that the customer is always right, because the customer is not always right. And I've made it very clear to my staff that I will not tolerate abuse, whether it's the frontline staff in the libraries, at the tip, or wherever. So the customer is not always right, and the customer will try and skirt the rules at some time. So we've got a job to do in terms of getting the right balance. But the customer has the right to expect good processes, a good experience, good clarity of information, and giving good feedback. And I agree with Nick and the other members that have said today that they think our frontline staff do an exceptionally good job, and they do. But I need to ensure that every single person in this organisation, from the chief executive through to our lowest paid person, we've got nearly 400 staff in this organisation, every single one of them should be thinking about the customer. And we haven't had that focus before. And my commitment to the public is that we are putting that focus on that experience. We're not going to get it right overnight. This is a journey. It's going to take some time for Bridget and for Matt and for the rest of the organisation. And we are going through our org design phase 2 at the moment, and we're going to be talking to staff about that. And we are going to be making sure that in everybody's job description, in our capability requirements, is around that customer focus. So I think it's really important that we've got this committee to be able to kick this stuff around, to bring issues and problems, whether it's in the builder consents. I'm hearing we're improving well, but I've also heard people have had not always a great experience every single time, and I'd like to make sure we have a consistent experience and that we arrive saying we really want to help this project get underway, and we're here to help you navigate the legislative requirements. So I really want to shift the culture of this organisation to be around, we're open for business, we're here to help, we're here to help you navigate the process. You're not always right if you're going to abuse us or be, that's not the way, but we are putting a really strong focus on this. I have seen an increase, to your question, Matty, I have seen an increase in abuse since COVID on our staff, and we do monitor this very closely, and Gareth, as chair of the senior leadership team, is monitoring this every month, and we get those reports, and I have seen a steady increase, and it's not acceptable. And I want the public to know that it's not acceptable to walk into the library or to the customer service centre or whatever and be misogynistic or abusive or racist or anything like that. We will not tolerate it. But we want to give you a good experience. And as Bridget said, it's not just about how quickly we answer the question, it's how well we and how we're improving our services. We haven't got a customer relationship management tool which you can go online and look at where's your building consent, where's your dog license, where's all those things. We need to invest in that, and we're looking at doing all that. So there's an awful lot going on at the moment, and I'm really pleased that this committee is going to bring to our attention the things that need looking at, whether you're trying to get a pool consent done, is that an easy process? Is it something that can be done easily, or are we being difficult about it? Those are the sort of things, bring those to our attention. So if the public know that they've got a committee, they can talk to them, and I don't want to bring individual issues, I want to bring systemic issues to this committee so that we can be aware of them, and over time, over the next year, 2 years, we fix them, and we become a council that is really responsive to the public, and we deliver a really good service.
Great. Thank you for all of that interesting, exciting information. And I agree, this committee is about governance oversight and not dipping into the operational side, but we are here as elected members, and we are front facing with our community and bring their voice to the table. So this is an exciting opportunity to bring in who the customer is, what their experience is, and how we can have that mindset as we go through this fluidity of the change and the embedding of the new process of how this organisation is going to support and work with our community, regardless of who the customer is, whether it's a commercial, a resident, or anyone in between. So, as it was highlighted before, identify who our customer is and then wrap around that. So I think that's quite an exciting period. We do ask for patience, and quite rightly, disrespectful or abusive behaviour is not tolerated. It's not tolerated here. It's not tolerated anywhere else. And I do remind people to treat people how they wish to be treated, which is with kindness and patience and tolerance, because as it was highlighted before, none of us are perfect and we all make mistakes. So on that note, I think I'll just come back to the Mayor. He has another follow-up question, and then I'll make my next statement.
Just as we wrap up, I think it's an opportunity, with this being a new process, to provide some feedback on where the information is adequate and not. And an important part of our role as elected representatives is ensuring that the value for money for our ratepayers. Now, I found the report very valuable and would compliment the staff on the information that's being provided. But I'd also add the feedback that I wouldn't mind some more detail in future reports around the substantive investment that council makes in events. Now, we've got those events that the council runs, and the report refers to 6, which is really good. There's the 7 community events that we ran during that 6-month period. The piece that, and the degree to which the council contributes, and it might be the very successful, of which I've had strong compliments about the support around the recent vintage car festival, and I received positive feedback despite the weather being crap for the New Year's Eve celebration and the like. What I think would be really helpful for us in our role around, are we getting the best value for the money, getting the most bangs for our bucks, would be just a simple table of each of the events in the 6-month period of the report, the estimated number, and some are unticketed, and so the staff need to do a sort of a finger in the air, i.e. we thought there was 1,000 or whatever number for an event like New Year's Eve, and to include both those that are run by council, but also those we were providing grants under our events funding, and would also want those like the Adam Chamber Music Festival and the Arts Festival, of which aren't in the events funding, but we've decided to provide a long-term commitment just for us to get a scale of it. It might not change anything, but it just makes us better informed about how we're expending. I think you could produce a 1-page table that just set out, here's the events we did over the last 6 months, the rough number of people that went at them, the amount of grant funding that we went. The last piece of it for me is making the judgment about our good value for money is quite difficult with the events, in that some were trying to get an economic outcome, some are trying to get a community dividend like a Matariki or the like, and some have a mix of both. So I don't want it to be as pure as, oh, that one cost $2.50 per participant and that one there cost $50 per participant, because the objectives that we have around them, but to get some optics into the $1 million a year that we're spending on events, I think will help both inform the ratepayers and us about priorities and that overall test of getting good value for money out of our events investment. And that's a minor comment relative to the quality of the overall report. But as we go forward, officers are trying to make that judgment call about how much detail do you give us and where we need a bit more.
Thank you, Mayor. You've actually preempted my question that I was about to put to the group and actually offer that opportunity to the other community committee members as it is our first one, and this is our baseline that we are creating to move forward from. Is there anything that any other committee members would like to share about their expectations of what they would like to receive from this committee? Oh, there's using microphones.
Just what a phrase story.
Councillor Matty.
My expectation is on council staff. Council laws. We are the only, we're making decisions and we need to be connecting with customers and our guys in front of them. So I go to the library, talk to a library, and I talk to a bus driver. So we really do need that voice.
If that is the case and there's no further comment, I would just like to conclude that we have considered all the business for today, and thank you everyone for attending and your input for the contributing to the strongest first meeting of this committee for the term. So no expectations just set there that we're going to be strongest committee for the term. And I'm going to now close with the karakia. So kuia mutu miha tau mahi mō tānei wā. Mana kite mai mātou kātou ai. Mātou hoa mātou whānau. Ahio kia te ao ranga. Hui taiki e.